Very good morning and a big welcome to everyone joining Cyberview's very first edition of a monthly webinar series. My name is Nadia from Cyberview Sindran Berhad, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we start, allow me to share more about what will entail in today's discussion. So Cyberjaya has recently celebrated its 23rd anniversary, to be exact, on the 17th of May, actually. And with this new norm, Cyberview is kicking things off with a series of online panel discussions that aims to talk about various topics of interest in today's new world. So as some of you may be aware, at Cyberview, we champion Cyberjaya as a vibrant, what we call global tech hub, or the center of Malaysia's tech innovations. And so to achieve this aim, we have built a collaborative ecosystem where technology will continue to power the growth of Cyberjaya as a smart city. So we hope with this series, it can bring together a variety of industry players and stakeholders like whom we have here today. Thank you for joining us this morning, especially in Malaysia's tech and digital scene, to engage with the relevant audiences. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just several months ago, the world was hit hard by a pandemic that no one predicted would be so severe, with extreme measures being forced to be put in place. Across the world, stay-at-home orders were imposed, lockdowns were enforced, which meant businesses and essentially the economy grinding to a halt. So after months and months of stringent directives and preventive measures by the government, as we've seen in Malaysia, we were able to flatten the pandemic curve. I think we are at a good place right now. So let's hope that the society continues to play their part to ensure that we curb the pandemic. And this is now has quickly become the ultimate goal, to flatten the pandemic curve and to maintain it and to slowly recover. So this is in hopes of ever seeing some shred of normalcy in the near future. So things may not be back to normal 100% like how it was before. That's why we call it the new normal. But at least I think people have been going back into their office, now going back to work. It's slowly happening, slowly but surely. And Malaysia has definitely been a testament to this success thus far, with everyone contributing their part. So as the global lockdown now, as we can see, it is beginning to ease. People are now learning to adapt to a new normal. And also now it's time to rebuild the economy. We can't deny how digitization has become more pivotal than ever before in this new normal. With the economy reopening and restarting, technology has become key in order to move forward and staying resilient, actually. From offering affordable world-class infrastructure to having a high concentration of tech-based companies, we can't deny how Cyberjaya is the ideal, actually, technology ecosystem for businesses to reboot. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel speakers today to talk about the role of technology ecosystem in restarting the economy. Our first panelist is Shafinaz Salim. She is the head of Technology Hub Development Division from Cyberview Sindran Berhad and has vast experience in the digital arena, as she previously served as the Strategy and Planning Manager with Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC, who is also Cyberview's strategic partner. So today, Shafinaz is responsible for strategizing, designing, developing, and executing key enablers to elevate Cyberjaya into a global technology hub. In her current role, Shafinaz has been instrumental in driving the development of Cyberjaya, in making it a vibrant, smart city that we envision it to be, and it is on its way. Our second panelist is Richard Kerr, who is Vice President of Partnership and Ecosystem Development of Aerodyne Group. He brings years of experience in the technology industry to his current role, where he oversees the management and development of global partnerships, joint ventures, and ecosystem development for the group. Aerodyne, which is based in Cyberjaya, is also a leading industry player in smart mobility, one of the 3 tech clusters identified under Cyberview's new master plan to propel Cyberjaya even further. Prior to this, Richard was also attached to Cyberview. He is a familiar face where he spearheaded and executed Cyberjaya's signature living lab, smart city programs, and drove industry development. He was also with Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Center Magic for over 2 years, where he helped to setting up the ASEAN Center of Entrepreneurship ACE to connect startup ecosystems regionally and globally. Welcome, Richard. And our third panelist is a household name in the digital creative industry, Usamah Zaid, founder and chief executive officer of WOW Animation. In fact, Usamah's animation journey actually began right here in Cyberjaya. His passion for animation grew when he enrolled into a creative multimedia course at Multimedia University, or MMU, in Cyberjaya. And after graduation, he kickstarted his business in Cyberjaya as well, and has thrived in the local animation scene by staying within the smart cities ecosystem. So prior to starting WOW Animation, Usamah Zaid was a founding member of Les Kopak Productions in 2005. Les Kopak Productions is behind the successful Upin and Ipin series and the movie Gang, Pengembaraan Bermula. Upon founding WOW Animation, he came out with Agent Ali, a hugely popular Malaysian animated series that has been broadcast in over 50 countries, including the Middle East, South Asia, and North Africa. Usamah has definitely been a pioneer figure in paving the way for a more thriving creative industry in Malaysia. Thank you for joining, Usamah. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists for being part of today's discussion, which is Cyberview's first webinar, which will be a series, a monthly series actually, starting from now on. So before we start, I'd like to remind everyone once again that we will open up the Q&A session at the end of the discussion. And starting now, as the discussion rolls and kicks in, you can submit your questions through the Q&A box at any time during the discussion for any of our panelists pertaining to today's topic of the role of technology ecosystem in restarting the economy. All right, my first question, I'd like to start with Shafinaz. Now, Shafinaz, you've been working in Cyberjaya for a number of years already, and you've helped nurture many companies from startups to SMEs to assimilate into the smart cities ecosystem. After all, Cyberjaya is known to be a living lab. But let's start off with this question. When we say technology ecosystem, what does it really mean? And how does Cyberjaya fit the bill in offering a technology ecosystem?
Thank you, Nadia. I hope everyone can hear me. Very good morning to a member of the panelists, and I'm very glad that we're having quite a very good attendees to be part of this webinar. A very interesting topic. In fact, many out there also talking about how are we now addressing, post of the pandemic, COVID-19. Yes, mentioned by Nadia, yes, I've been around in Cyberjaya for quite some time. In fact, almost 2 decades, and I've seen quite a bit, I would say, significant growth of where Cyberjaya was before and where Cyberjaya is today. And of course, we're now talking about looking forward for the future of Cyberjaya with a more complete ecosystem. And coming back to the word ecosystem itself, in my personal view itself, we're talking about ecosystem, it varies in terms of the component. We're talking about for businesses, investors, as in particular for the businesses, the components always, the ultimate goal is about what they need for the key ingredients to sustain and also to grow the business. Market, I call it the 3M, which is the market, money. These are the 2 key ones, and the last one will be the mentor. That would relate to the other core components of another part of the sub-ecosystem, which addresses the requirements of an infrastructure, and then you have the talent requirement and incentives and community. And under each of that, there are other types of the elements or the characteristics that's required for any businesses and for the so-called the supply and demand to flourish. So what we, in Cyberjaya, what Cyberview has been trying to put in place, and we've been putting in place quite successfully, not alone, definitely, is talking about to make sure that these components are interconnected, and they're also interdependent in terms of the network of industry players, because when Cyberjaya first started, it started off with most of them are software technology companies. And today, most of these companies are not just being addressed as the tech companies, but they're addressing different industry segments. And as a tech hub developer of Cyberjaya, what Cyberview is now known today, we are very much committed to continue to develop the tech ecosystem to make sure that the businesses here mainly are dominated by technology companies. And we also have a growing number of the communities. The communities are not just the tech businesses. We also have the community of the residents and also the community of the students, even the key government agencies, ministries, local companies, international companies, to make sure that, you know, these different communities are continuing to flourish in Cyberjaya. And it is very, I'm very pleased to note that this year is our 23rd year anniversary for Cyberjaya. And Cyberview has been working the past year to setting in place the new revised master plan, looking forward for the next course of 5 to 20 up to 15 years, where we're looking at the very much focus on what will be the 3 new tech clusters, we call it, that we want to focus on. And in there, we're talking about the smart mobility cluster. We're having smart healthcare and also the digital creative. Hence, the panelists that we have invited today also comes in a diverse way, at least in these 3 tech clusters. However, what we foresee also, they could be working together, maybe not now, but they'll be working together very soon, because it can be that interconnected or integration of the smart services of these focus that we're looking at. And even for Cyberview, with this planning, we can see that for some of you that may not have the latest information about Cyberjaya, we're now zoning Cyberjaya into the 4 main districts. We have, as far as the past 2 decades, the presence of Cyberjaya now, we have the matured area where we call it the downtown Cyberjaya, where Agent Ali or Wow Animation is currently located. That is the global business district, because it's very matured with quite a prominent from MNCs down to the SMEs and also startups mixed with retail businesses and all that. So that completes the ecosystem for the companies to continue to retain in Cyberjaya. Then we are moving to the West Cyberjaya, a little bit further from the downtown, where you can see the existing universities. This is where we're saying that it's concentrated by the education players. So this is where we feel that we are viewing it as a talent hub, where most of the current talent and also the future talent supplies will be nurtured through the existence of the universities in Cyberjaya. Currently, we already have 8 universities, and we want to see more of the academic institutions that they're not just preparing for this talent, the talent supply, but then of course we want to see that would address the future employability, and also some of them will maybe also venturing into new businesses. And then we're moving up a little bit to the North Cyberjaya. So this is where the future of where we foresee that this will be the new commerce district with also, the global business district, whereby the new smart city solutions will be used or implemented fully. And also in this coming couple of years' time, we're going to have another part of the ecosystem that address the infrastructure, which is the upcoming of the MRT stations that will be complete in terms of the transportation that will be required by the community of the businesses, the residents, and also the students. And then we're coming to the most important ones, which is where a lot of effort now we're putting in, which is the South Cyberjaya. This is where the innovation, the new technologies that we want to get the communities of the technologies to actually come forward and be in Cyberjaya to innovate further. We may come with an idea or we come with an existing products, whereby what the key unique value proposition of Cyberjaya through the ecosystem that we have in place right now, that you can test back, validate the companies can validate the solutions, can also then tweak and to refine it further to enhance it, and also then ready to market or enhance further in addressing their market commercialization. Hence, that's why the positioning of Cyberjaya being the global technology hub with 2 key strategic pillars, the smart city and also the living lab, where we're saying that this is the hub where you are testing, validating, piloting, and then eventually adopting the solutions by the various users. And in fact, some keynote, I think some of you may have heard that Cyberjaya is a highly tech adopters, over 20% of them, because of the community. When we first started off, where we continue to have the mix of them, we are very much tech savvy.
Okay, no worries. We might be facing a little bit of a technical difficulty, but
the just tech developers, they are technology companies. Okay. Internet connection. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can proceed, Shafinaz. Yeah.
Sorry, you can stop me if I'm talking non-stop on this.
No, it's fine.
Excited and talking about technology ecosystems. There's just so many things to say about, people may not know what's actually happening on the ground, and I would like to share a lot more on this. So to make it more interesting is that as we are promoting more, we have quite a diverse companies. When we first start off, we got the multinational companies. Yes, that's why we attract all these brand names here into Cyberjaya. Now we're seeing a lot of the smaller players, the SMEs, the startups are starting to come in, and definitely they require a lot of support assistance from and this is where Cyberview coming in, and also because of the having the other key agencies like AMDAC, Magic, Might, you name it. There are quite prominent names in Cyberjaya that they also bring in the other parts of the assistance, and the companies can actually, be benefiting some of the assistance that we needed by these businesses. Not to forget, as part of the ecosystem, it also comes forward in terms of the R&D support and also pre-commercialization that these the tech companies may require, and this is where industry academia collaboration works with a little bit help from the government perhaps, and also most importantly, now we would like to see more of the bigger companies here in Cyberjaya would also want to work with the other tech players, the smaller ones, where you can complement each other to grow further. Other than that, I would also like to share again, our latest product by Cyberview for Cyberjaya, the Cyberjaya Investment and Services Center. Is currently located in Rekascape. What is important to note that, for companies out there, for the businesses and the community to actually benefit, or should you encounter in any assistance that you may require from us, CISC or Cyberjaya Investment and Services Center will be able to facilitate you in terms of the business location services, in terms of a business facilitation in setting up, or you want to require you're not sure where to go to. We have also our Cyberjaya City Services, and also our being the pioneer as part of the Multimedia Super Corridor over 20 years, we are also holding the role of the Cyber City Manager. So I hope this is breadth enough for me in covering the technology ecosystem that fits the bill for us, Cyberview, how we are playing our role here in Cyberjaya. So maybe the rest of it, I'll leave it up to my other peers, Richard and also Usamah, to validate some of this, or maybe there are other areas because they are in a unique vertical of the industry that they're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafinaz. That was a very comprehensive and holistic illustration of what this tech ecosystem means, what it is in Cyberjaya. Now that we've heard from Shafinaz from Cyberview, let's go to Richard, who used to be with Cyberview in planning for the development of the tech development in Cyberjaya. But now let's go to Richard, who is now an industry player based in Cyberjaya. And you've been one of the key industry players who have been reaping the benefits from this tech ecosystem that we have here in Cyberjaya. So my next question is for you. So with Aerodyne, and not only being based in Cyberjaya, but you are also a catalyst in the smart mobility sector. Smart mobility, one of the 3 tech clusters that we have identified, Shafinaz mentioned earlier, under the Cyberview's new master plan to revitalize Cyberjaya. So smart mobility is an emerging, important emerging technology sector. So how important is a sound tech ecosystem to propel the growth of a global tech company such as Aerodyne, Richard?
Thank you, Nadia, for your question. Just want to say hi to our fellow panelists and to all the attendees this morning. Truly appreciate for taking the time to join us. So back to your question, Nadia. So for Aerodyne side, we're always looking to collaboration, because collaboration, that means looking into the whole tech ecosystem and how we can, partner up with each other and then leverage on each other's strength. So for example, Aerodyne, being a relatively young company, we're just about slightly more than 5 years old, but we have already made footprints in over 25 countries. And we have about 400 Aero Rangers, we call it, which are actually people who work for Aerodyne. It's the same way. So for instance, all the how we managed to enter into 25 countries within a short period is through the tech ecosystem, by partnering up with the local players first, because we always believe in localization. It's always good to have local content and to make sure that we can enter the specific markets. And Cyberjaya has all of these compared to 2 years ago. At least lately, we have seen quite a thriving ecosystem in Cyberjaya. We have quite a diverse technology companies, and there are also other drone players currently based in Cyberjaya as well, which we already regularly in touch with them to find ways to collaborate and things like that. And in fact, even our investors are already also based here in Cyberjaya, which actually make it really, really conducive for us. So in terms of, for example, the recent COVID-19 pandemic, whereby Aerodyne provided service working together with PDRM in terms of doing the enforcement of the MCO by using drones. The lead actually came from MCMC, whom is actually based in Cyberjaya as well. So for us, tech ecosystem is absolutely important. In fact, my role at Aerodyne, I look at into how do we map the whole Aerodyne's ecosystem with other ecosystem players as well, because we use that framework to connect the dots, because this is an opportunity for us to work with all the relevant technology companies, because for us, Aerodyne being what we call it a DT to the power of 3 company, which stands for drone technology, data technology, and digital transformation. So we always want to develop great solutions for our customers, and of course, having a sound ecosystem, it will definitely help in developing those type of solutions for our customers.
Yes, indeed, Richard, you mentioned about the MCO. So during the MCO period where movements were restricted and limited, we saw even more how important the technology of drones is in delivering perhaps emergency medical supplies and so on, delivering food maybe. So drones is, the technology of drones is actually very much the future. And I think we are seeing the need of drones increasing now as we move into digitalizations post COVID-19 especially. So next, my next question is for Usamah. Now Usamah, let's go into the world of digital creative. I'd like to bring our audience into a different sector, another tech cluster that we have also identified to be one of the future pillars of Cyberjaya. Now, we know that the digital creative sector, I think, has huge potential in Malaysia, and there is a lot more room for growth. Wow Animation has been based in Cyberjaya since its formation, and it's also apparent how the smart city is near and dear to your heart, Usamah. As if you've seen the movie Agent Ali, it's actually based in a town, a fictional town called Cyberraya, based on the actual Cyberjaya. So Usamah, from your perspective and from your experiences so far, how has the ecosystem in Cyberjaya been beneficial to what you do?
Thanks, Nadia, for the question. Hi, everyone. The decision to make Cyberraya in the image or a mirror image of Cyberjaya, I think it was more of a spontaneous. It's something organic to the story. But if we were to talk about the ecosystem in the creative industry in Cyberjaya, I think for us, it's really the biggest thing is the presence of the community. We have, of course, MDEC is one of the agency championing the digital creative. So we started, it was back in 2013. The reason why we started operation in Cyberjaya was because we were offered a placement in the Mac3 incubator by Cyberjaya. So, sorry, by MDAC. So, it was for a new startup then, a studio of less than 10 people. It was good to have a placement like that. It helped us focus on the process of doing the creative things rather than worrying about, because going into animation, it can be a very expensive endeavor. You have your softwares, your machine, your high-end machines that you need to invest in. So getting into an incubator really helped us very early on. And from then on, I think with MDAC, it doesn't end there. It's not just the incubation. If anyone who works in animation, I think know what I'm talking about. Like we pretty much talk to MDAC when it comes to a lot of other things, when it comes to financing, global marketing reach, especially. Like for example, for us at Wow Animation, being in Cyberjaya really helped us gain that access, because from time to time MDAC would have like some buyers flying in, or potential partner from around the region or from US or Europe. So whenever they come in, us being a studio situated in Cyberjaya, we're sort of like just at the like around the area, so you get to engage the market a lot more. So it really helped us in that sense, I think, because during my days and before WoW, it was we were operating away from Cyberjaya. It was in Shah Alam. So I felt the difference between being in Cyberjaya and being outside Cyberjaya, and it was huge. Like I felt the impact on the business opportunities, on the, how to say, the awareness of the market. It was vast difference. And then we also have the talent supply ecosystem, where I graduated from MMU, and now being in the industry, as well as an alumni, I get invited to meet a lot of the student faculty members. So it gives that how to say, close close discussion between industry and academia. And it how to say, it feels good knowing that we are in touch in developing the next talent pool, so to speak, and we get to actually meet with them from time to time to give them like a glimpse or share about what's going on in the industry. Because I believe that while you're studying, it's never too early to give them that exposure, that awareness. And most importantly, I think is the presence of other animation studio. This is what I think makes the biggest difference between being in Cyberjaya and outside. Because when you have that community that you sort of like live around the area, you work, like you go eat and then you bump into like like senior or like another CEO or another animation director, and then you get to have this spontaneous conversation, right? Like and sometimes you just like sit at the mama together and just talk about like what's going on in the industry, and like what the other studio is up to, and then what you're up to. And we've had like a lot of opportunity working, like when you get into this kind of conversation, you also end up opening up possibility of collaborating together. We've worked together with we are working together still with some of the studios like Giggle Garage, DD Animation, and Anymonster. So having such big household names all together in that, so it's sort of like a melting pot of these talents, and it's just wonderful how you can generate or stir up this spontaneous effort kind of thing, like, because everyone is there, right? So I feel it's very refreshing, because like I said, prior to being in Cyberjaya, we were operating outside, and like it's the difference just massive. I think for an animation company being in the creative industry, it's really wonderful to be in Cyberjaya.
I think what some of the elements that you mentioned just now is what makes Cyberjaya a living lab, as what Shafinaz mentioned just now. We provide and create a collaborative atmosphere in order for players from many different industries to get together and exchange ideas, share ideas. So we provide that in the technology ecosystem that we have in Cyberjaya. You also mentioned about going through an incubator program by MDEC. So for startups out there, if you need a launch pad to commercialize your solutions, if you need to gain access to mentorship and funding, Cyberjaya is definitely an ideal location to look into accelerator programs. We have one even by Cyberview as well, called the Cyberview Living Lab Accelerator, or CLLA. We are opening up applications actually for the new cohort. You can start applying now until 30th of June, if I may add. And also we have programs by other agencies too, besides MDEC. We have from Magic as well. So this is where we say that Cyberjaya has a flourishing startup environment as well. So as you've mentioned, Usamah, when you're a startup company, you have just how a handful number of people. So to launch, to get started is not that easy, and you do need that help and the assistance, which we do provide here in Cyberjaya for startups, especially in the tech industry. Now, Shafinaz, you have defined the technology ecosystem to be a network of industry players collaborating to create innovation, and Usamah has attested to that. Now that businesses are beginning to reopen and recover, how will this ecosystem play a role in restarting these businesses and the economy as a whole?
Thanks, Nadia. Well, post-pandemic, you definitely, even during the pandemic itself, you can see a sudden general increase of people starting to adopt digital services, right? As simple as using app, and then in terms of the payment tech, using e-wallet and so on. So the work that Cyberview has started a couple of years ago, we're talking about through a cashless initiative, for example, that has proven that, it helps now to, in fact, a sudden increase perhaps today to see a digitalization, also adoption of technology. That's one as a smaller aspect of that. So you imagine through the post-pandemic, the behavior of the people, the consumers are now changed. And that is the end user consumer. How about in terms of the enterprise level? The businesses also now looking into the enterprise digitalization aspect. And people are now more cautious even when they want to purchase things, because we're not sure, people are now trying to take the opportunity. It's also an opportunity for tech businesses to push their digital products, right? And the question now is a matter of which are these products most effective, or that would also address their business needs. And this is where for Cyberjaya, we have that many solutions with the number of the tech SME startups that we have, more than 500 of them, even in Cyberview buildings itself, we have more than 200 tech SMEs and also startups, let alone the entire Cyberjaya. And you know that even the multinational companies also have their own solutions and services that that can also be provided to some of these traditional businesses as well. So you're talking about a quick and adaptation of the technology to be more effective by the users. So this is the time whereby it's immediately restarting for the businesses and also for the community today. So as part of it, it's very important through the collaborative environment where we, through the network of people who we know, the contacts that we know, can help when people are now asking who shall we talk to, where this is the part where actually Cyberview can also is providing that kind of assistance. Even we ourselves also evaluating some of the solutions for our own use that can be benefiting our users and also our tenants. Apart from that, this is also the time for the new innovation, even the likes of the demand for the drone, right? You can see that Aerodyne is doing its national service in providing their drone expertise, looking at in terms of the surveillance, that kind of thing. So just imagine the other players, the smaller ones also may have their own solutions. The robotics technology players, in terms of they will quickly now innovate to see that there's a demand for this. And with that, there are some of these assistance that they will still need. For example, in terms of most of the technology, some of the technology companies, they may have some gaps in terms of market, going to the market, even up to the branding or packaging their products. Perhaps they would need in terms of some capital to address promotion or marketing, a better branding of their products, and also networks. So this is where Cyberview again will be able to facilitate some of these tech companies that would need that kind of assistance for them to get reach to for the market access itself. And as mentioned by Nadia earlier, we have an upcoming cohort we open up through our Cyberview Living Lab Accelerator. So we are definitely looking at the tech solution companies that we want to be into our programs, where we will facilitate in terms of the value adding through the mentorship, through the market requirements, the validation, which at the end of the day, you will connect you through the potential corporate partners, users, as well as maybe they need further funding with the angel investors, VCs, and so on. So again, I think in this context, this is a time where businesses are now starting to embrace fast in terms of the technology, and also for the community of whether it's business enterprise level or the even the end users, even within Cyberjaya are now, I believe in terms of the tech adopters are now may have already increased at least, from the 20% could have now at least with a 10%, another 10% increase. But that is something that we need to validate. So that again, that this is how we are seeing the economy are restarting. In fact, before the MCO uplifted, businesses can't wait to get back onto the feet again.
Richard, we're talking about drones now and the role that it played, especially during the MCO. Now, Aerodyne has definitely helped the government to enforce the use of drones. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it has completed over 1,000 hours of drone flight times. Now, Richard, this is certainly an amazing feat and really bodes well for the future of drones in this nation. So what do you hope to see in our local drone industry achieve in the coming years?
Thank you, Nadia. So just to clarify, during the MCO, when we did the supporting the police force for the enforcing the MCO, we clocked a total of 1,364 hours, coming from 28 different teams. And we use, at the peak, we used 62 drones specifically. And the actual distance covered was actually 55,000 kilometers cumulatively. So that means it's actually more than one round around the Earth, whereby the Earth's circumference is about 40,000 kilometers. So during the MCO, we actually took the opportunity to develop a platform as well, because we see that the drone itself is just a way of enforcing the MCO, but also collecting data. But we want to make sure that the data resides somewhere. So internally within Aerodyne, we did our own internal hackathon, whereby all the developers and all the different teams scrambled up and then built a platform that we can offer to the authorities so that they can use it to become an analytics tool when they do this MCO enforcement. So for instance, every time when all the different teams fly the drones, they would actually put in the data information into the platform. Once the flight has been performed, they will upload the video and photos and all the different footages onto the platform, and that becomes a good analytics for the authorities to see where are the outbreaks and where were the flights were performed. So it gives them a good insights when performing the MCO. So from that, we see that there's a lot of opportunities, I mean, in terms of the drone industry in Malaysia. So we're not just talking about drones per se, we're actually looking at the whole different industries to be created from the drones. So for example, I can just give you one quick example. During the MCO, I think one of the things that were greatly affected was the supply chain ecosystem, whereby, of course, then if we talk about supply chain, we're going to talk about food being affected, whereby food from Cameron Highlands, for example, and from the paddy field too, would have been already disrupted by the lack of transportation and things like that. So if you look ahead, maybe 5 to 10 years from now, or even less than that, there's a huge opportunity. For example, drone-based cargo, for example. So imagine in the future, or in the very near future, you're able to deliver cargo using drones without actually having to rely on ground transportation. And this, in fact, this technology is already being in the development. In fact, in the US and a place in Alaska, they already have what they call it the heavy lifter. These are huge drones which are capable to carry a huge amount of cargo. So that, if you think about the whole industry itself in Malaysia, there's a huge potential, for example. So if there were to, things like an MCO is going to happen again, hopefully it won't happen in the future, we can potentially use this kind of technology to deliver items from one place to another. Even for example, things like doing a drone delivery and things like that. There's a huge potential, and everyone can be part of this drone ecosystem.
All right. Now, Usamah, the Malaysia's digital content industry has seen significant growth over the past few years. We have more than over 100 homegrown studios in Malaysia. Now we're talking about a post-pandemic world. Do you foresee any major changes in the digital creative industry, and what do you think is required to propel our local creative industry to even greater heights? What should perhaps be the industry aim for the next 10 years, maybe in terms of revenue, global reach, or number of IPs?
All right. Well, the major changes that I see is happening or surfacing right now. Even prior to the MCO, I think aside from government, the government assistance, like giving a focus and attention and getting the hands into the creative industry, I think it is also hugely credited to the new, how to say, generation of talents, because before this, like I think we all typically know in Malaysia, everyone wanted children to be doctors, engineers, lawyers, and that changed, I think, when how to say, IT became that started to surface, right? Back then, I would say, for example, my generation, the people that I meet or hire inside the industry, most of us, we struggle to convince our parents that animation is something worthwhile pursuing. But if you compare that situation to people in the US, like for example, if I take John Lasseter, the former the former creative chief at Pixar, he knew that he wanted to be an animator when he was about 5 years old. Like, he would watch animation, he would go to Disneyland and he would say, like, this is what I'm going to be doing, like when I grow up, kind of thing. Whereas for me, on the other hand, at 5 years old, watching animation, I don't think I had any clue whatsoever that, you know, there were people behind the scene actually, you know, doing the drawings and all the extensive work that needed to be done. It was only until like I finished high school and then started going to MMU that I knew that, oh, there's actually a, you know, such thing, there's actually a career in this. But that I think is slowly changing now, because we have seen several success case in Malaysia, like local heroes that are coming up, and I noticed that this have helped you know, change the exposure in the society. So there are more people. I see, like last time the animation that used to come up in our animation industry was mostly produced by self-taught animators, or very small number of people who have actually traveled abroad and worked in this industry and then came back and tried to, you know, attempt to build an industry and the same industry locally. But now we are actually seeing graduates who have been formally trained, right? Like we've seen like the animation or multimedia creative programs has been around for about, I think, like 15 20 years now. So what we are seeing is like an uprising of this new generation of creative talents, new generation of filmmakers, and we can see that resulting in the growth of our film industry, our animation industry. So this is, I think, one of the main thing that is happening now. Secondly, I think this also involves the MCO. Prior to the COVID situation, the creative industry, or I would say the content industry, we were already witnessing like a huge change in how people are consuming platform. Because now, you know, last time it was people would watch everything on TV or cinema, but now you have like digital streaming platform. People are watching on their, you know, mobile devices, the tablets, their laptop. So content consumption has been like shifting, and what this do to the market, the animation market, is that, you know, we have to adjust to that. We need to adapt. Like we need to see where the market lies and what are the need inside the market kind of thing. We no longer have to. We no longer should be focusing on just the broadcasters or, you know, the cinema, but, you know, it's sort of like the how to say it sort of like the platform kind of like just blew up, and you need to figure out like what's happening, where you need to shift your market to. With the MCO happening, right? I noticed that the shift was changing from traditional to digital. But with the MCO happening, it's sort of like just fast forward this whole process. So we're now seeing it, the digital platform being consumed like you know, by multiple times over. Like the numbers that you are seeing being generated through the digital is increasing, and of course we are also uncertain like how long it would take, or if the cinema industry would ever recover to what it was, right? It probably will take years before this happen. But you know, a lot of what we're doing now will need to be how to say observing, or rather like studying how the changes are taking place, and we need to anticipate like what we need to do in order to supply the market in that direction. And in terms of like what we need to do to what we should aim for, I feel that in Malaysia we the talents are amazing now. We have the technical and aesthetic capacity. Like we have really good talents, but we should aim to to build our brand as a unit kind of thing. In the industry, we need to build our brand as a unit, because right now there's still, that perception what is Malaysia, what does Malaysia content stand for kind of thing. And I believe we, just from embracing our identity, like our uniqueness, and projecting that in our content, I think that would allow us to propel our industry further, much like what the Japanese have done with their creative industry, what the Koreans are doing, like how they are so big now. This is something that I feel, is a strength that we have as a nation, and we should figure out how to put that into our branding, into the content that we're creating. Yeah.
Definitely, Usamah. I think we all can concur to that. Actually, one of our audience members says that he looks forward to see Cyberjaya turning into Cyber Raya. So I think, with the technology ecosystem in place and with all these players coming together, it's a good point that you made, that we need to build a brand as a unit together. Now, I have one last question for all our panelists before we go into Q&A. Now, as we know, Malaysia has successfully flattened the curve and suppressed the spread of COVID-19. It's an ongoing effort. A lot more still needs to be done, and the government is now beginning to reopen the economy. But it will not be the world that we used to know. And as we have mentioned several times, businesses will have to adapt to this new world. Now, what would be your one advice or takeaway for companies who are looking to find their footing in this new world? Richard, I'll go to you first.
All right, Nadia, thank you. So I'll just probably give 2 or 3 pointers, very short one, I promise. So post-COVID-19, we can see that digitalization is very essential. I mean, even during MCO, people will scramble, how do they work from home and things like that. So now that we see the opportunities a lot, and when people ask, when is the best time to adopt? It's yesterday. So do not fear of technology and to adopt to digital technology, because it's a great time. It's a great opportunity because everyone's moving towards that already. And technology, it's no longer good to have. It is extremely essential for any businesses nowadays. So they need to be brave to explore, to go to take the next step. And for companies in Malaysia, they should take advantage of the existing ecosystem already exists in Cyberjaya, and of course Malaysia as a whole, and always take the opportunity, just like Usamah said. You need to have a sort of like a global mindset. Always, when you start a business, think global from day one, because you never know what's going to happen. So we are very fortunate at Aerodyne because of our global presence. So during the pandemic, we were still able to create a lot of leads, a lot of opportunities, and build a lot of value for our partners around the world. So that's my key takeaway.
Very encouraging words from you, Richard. Now, Usamah, what would be your advice?
Well, being in the creative industry, I've seen a lot of newcomers coming in, trying to emulate what's being done, right? The thing is, I'm sure it's probably also the same in other industry, but more importantly so in the creative industry, like what the market need, what you need to do in order to stand out is to actually, come up with something that's fresh. So it's like, yes, it's good when you observe like what's happening. It's good for you to like get mentorship and things like that. Talk to the people in the industry, study the industry landscape, where where the market lies, where the financing access are, who are the key players you need to be collaborating with. But more importantly, now I think it's more critical than ever, because the world is changing, the market is changing, everything about the industry is changing. So you need to be bold. You need to you have to be like, people always like, when I look back the how to say the big breakthrough that I've had throughout my career. The most key moments have always been when you're doing something that people felt didn't make sense. Like people would think that it's silly, it's crazy, but it's always the things that you have to be daring enough to do things that would separate you from others, kind of thing. And like I said, with the new normal, you just need to be very daring to step into it. Don't play safe. It's there's usually, you take the risk, and usually there's reward at the end of it. And if you're looking to set up shop, I think Cyberjaya is always a good place. I'm also now mentoring like several companies in Cyberjaya. So be daring, come to Cyberjaya.
Oh, awesome. So bold and brave, the key elements to what is needed to restart the economy. And lastly, Shafinaz.
Okay, I'm glad that Usamah somewhat also, even Richard addressed the going back to my first three key ingredients, talking about market, money, and mentor. So they at least validate, the points that I've said earlier about market and also mentor. Nevertheless, I've also spoken previously before that, for us in Cyberjaya, that we always encourage the companies, especially the smaller ones, to always, be agile and also flexible for any change that's happening, because change is the only constant here, right? And this is also the time that, I'm sure companies have already taken a step back and analyzed the business processes and also the strategies that one should be, looking at to remain competitive and also sustain in the world today. So what's important, I think, companies, or even for us here, to keep focus on the future itself. Even when Cyberjaya first started, we always already spoken about being in the future, and today is validating the plan that we envisioned 20 years back. So we are addressing that future already. So we must stay ahead of the curve, and the future is driven by technology, and Cyberjaya is the hub for the technology, where we have that supportive ecosystem. So definitely, I would say, please join.
All right. Now, thank you very much to all our panelists. We are not done yet. We do have one question. Someone did ask whether this session will be available on Cyberview's Facebook later. This session is currently being recorded, so you can always watch it again. We will upload it onto our social media, so do look out for that. But let's go into a Q&A session. We do have some questions from our audience members here. The first one I'd like to throw out to Richard, actually. The question is, how soon can we see autonomous vehicles roaming around Cyberjaya, giving Grab-like services to users? Maybe Richard can start off with that.
Okay, probably I can answer that based on my previous experience while I was at Cyberview. I know there's already a autonomous vehicle company startup based out of Futurize, which is just next to Magic's building, currently actively testing a self-driving vehicle. It's fully made in Malaysia. We have all the full engineers and all Malaysian-born engineers. They're all very awesome in developing that technology. I guess at this point in time, I think what I know based on my last conversation with them, they're trying to work together with all the different regulators and agencies to push this testing outside of the Magic campus. And I think Cyberjaya being a test bed for all these new technologies, I think it's a very ideal place. As you know, some parts of Cyberjaya are still not that busy yet, so it's very ideal for you to test out these self-driving cars. So I guess I'm not sure. I cannot give you the timeline. You have to check with the folks at Cyberview or probably at Futurize. They probably have the definite answer. But I guess it will be soon. Technology evolves very quickly. Sooner or later, we'll start seeing these vehicles on the roads.
All right, the next question, I think this pass it over to Shafinaz. What industry that's currently not in Cyberjaya or have minimal presence, but could actually benefit from the tech ecosystem in Cyberjaya?
Okay, let me just be very precise, because I would want to look forward based on the new plans that we have. Specifically, one of the clusters that we look at is a smart healthcare. As you can see today, I think we need more of the healthcare ecosystem and players more into Cyberjaya, because one of the, in terms going back to infrastructure, or I would say amenities, the public Cyberjaya hospital that is envisioned to be the first smart hospital will be ready in by end of next year. Definitely, you can see today in Cyberjaya, you can see the increasing number of the other value chain services, the clinics, in terms of specialized centers, dialysis centers, pharmacies. So just imagine, we need more of the tech players that would complement the health tech healthcare services. I would want to see more of these companies into Cyberjaya. Even for Cyberview, we are working very hard with the other stakeholders and also with other rightful associations or agencies and ministries to bring this type of companies or in industry here in to Cyberjaya.
All right. The next question, I'll leave it to either Richard or Usamah to answer. The question is, in your opinion, has the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the digitalization of businesses and adoption of digital services or solutions like e-payments, e-wallet, paperless, drones? Maybe, Usamah, we can hear from you on that.
Yes, the first part of the question, I think, has it sped up the move to digitization? Definitely. Just to share, like, you see, working in remote working is what we call it. Remote working is not exactly something new in the animation or creative industry, right? But certain studios, like even for us at WOW, we have like the kind of setup that was not catered to remote working, right? Because what we have in our animation production is like everyone, we would house everyone under one roof, and it would have one big storage server to because working with animation, you work with huge number of files, so we kind of need everyone there to be accessing the works. So when the MCO started happening, like, we did not anticipate how long it would be, right? And we felt like, okay, maybe we can just like work on certain portion of the production, like some teams that don't need to have like such heavy file like size can work from home. So we sort of like stopped operation for about 75% of the production. That is until the first announcement for MCO extension, and then we realized that, okay, this is going to be a while. So what we immediately do is start looking into how we can make sure that our production can continue to go on even from home. And that's what we did exactly. Like, and I think just by looking at that, right, it goes the same. Again, my examples would mostly be inside the creative industry, because this is what I know. Like, for example, movies that was scheduled to come out in the cinema. For example, from Pixar, they were releasing Onward. It was slated to go out in the cinema. COVID pandemic happened. They immediately shifted their marketing, shifted their release onto the digital platform, and then like tools that are made for how to say, like, remote working are being developed very quickly now. Like, a lot of studios are looking into solutions like how we can keep the studio running without physically being in the studio, right? So I think looking at that as far, because life needs to go on no matter what happened, we need to move ahead. That's sort of like just the nature of what we do, and by we I mean human, right? Like, no matter what adversity are being thrown at us, we will figure out a way to move ahead. And yeah, the obstacle now is, like distancing, being like careful, being clean, being safe. So yeah, anything that the digital landscape can provide, I definitely see it being put into application. It will be, yeah, it's the only way the world can keep moving is by going further into the digitization at this point.
Some, I think it's really important that we work together. We don't work in silos, but we move forward together because we can't
Definitely, yeah.
anticipate what will happen. We don't know whether there'll be another future pandemic or outbreak. So it's important that we work together as a team. Richard, would you like to add on anything to that as well?
Yes. So in terms of from Aerodyne's perspective, as you know, since we are actually a global Malaysian company, we don't get that a lot. We get to interact with a lot of countries from around the world. So we've been receiving a lot of leads and inquiries from different countries asking about how can they use drones in order to help them and minimize the risk for their frontliners and things like that. So definitely the pandemic itself has created a lot of awareness, even through the platform like this and Zoom. Imagine if we don't have Zoom during the pandemic, I think it's gonna affect a lot. So we should be appreciative that all entrepreneurs and startups have developed this platform even way before the pandemic happened. So we should take advantage of this. So definitely, I think. The pandemic itself has opened up a lot of opportunities for startups. For example, for entrepreneurs, they should be really talk to these potential companies. I think a lot of them want to digitalize their business, but they're not sure how to do it. So take the opportunity to just make that cold call, connect someone on LinkedIn, see, or just look at the news, see who are being affected by the pandemic. I'm sure there's always a way for startups to leverage on that, and of course, and taking advantage of the existing ecosystem in Cyberjaya and of course in Malaysia.
Okay, great. Still on the same question now. We are, it's 12:11 p.m. So quickly, the very last one, I have to close up the Q&A box. But one more still on the same question. This is for Shafinaz. How is Cyberview tapping into this and helping businesses digitalize?
I think again, this is definitely a great opportunity for Cyberjaya communities, the technology companies, and also then looking at the penetration that they're able to tap on, with the traditional businesses, people that may not have the entire solutions in running their business out there, the retailers. Even talking about retailers, whether they're in F&B or they're in the healthcare services, and all that. So it's just a matter of they should be fast enough, be hungry enough to look out for where are the opportunities for these tech players and also the other businesses to marry their solutions and services, and this also increase the adoption of the tech. So it's definitely an opportunity of time rather than people seeing as as the negatively affecting businesses, but it's actually an opportunity for both sides of the businesses as well, whether they are tech companies or whether you're into the other services sector. So for us in Cyberview, definitely we want to, whichever ways that we can, play the role of the tech hub developer for us to facilitate through our facilitation services that we always take on behalf of the businesses and also for the community, whether we can facilitate in terms of the business facilitation services through the market access or any assistance that the companies may require, that we can connect to other the rightful agencies or other players and so on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shafinaz. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you to Richard and Usamah as well for a very insightful discussion this morning on the role of technology ecosystem in restarting the economy. It's a very important, I think, feature or an important element right now that we have to bear in mind, especially in the tech economy or tech ecosystem, because digitalization is now the way to go, the way to move forward. So ladies and gentlemen, with all the time that we have already, on behalf of Cyberview, I would like to thank all our panelists once again for sharing your valuable thoughts to the audience. So we hope that you've enjoyed today's session. And also with all the unanticipated changes and hurdles faced, let's keep our focus on the future. As Shafinaz said, the future is a world shaped by technology. What we're doing today, specifically in Cyberjaya, is vital for tech businesses to flourish. So that sound tech ecosystem is right here in Cyberjaya, the best location actually for tech businesses and investments in technology. Thank you again for joining us in our discussion of the role of a technology ecosystem in restarting the economy. This webinar series will be a monthly affair. We will be back with many other engaging topics in the tech and digital scene. So we know that we know that our participants today have registered for today's webinar. You will be receiving updates on our future sessions so that you won't miss out. Don't forget also to follow us on social media to stay up to date. So once again, thank you to our panelists, Richard, Usamah, and Shafinaz, and thank you to everyone joining us this morning. This session has been recorded. We will upload the link onto our social media so that you can view it later on as well. So to everyone, have a great day ahead and have a wonderful weekend, and also stay safe. Thank you.